You're listening to the Changing Normal podcast, where we strive to outdo the old normal and reject the new normal. And now your hosts, Owen, Dan, and Ben.
Welcome to episode 21. I'll be hosting today. That means I get to push things along. This is September 29th. We're glad you joined us.
AKA, he's looking forward to telling us to shut up.
I enjoy the power when it's mine. Yes, that type of thing. We're going to make this a juicy one. I mean, kind of have to since we had a bit of a vacation week. Actually, maybe we should explain. I think it's been a crazy couple of weeks for all three of us. Owen had the plague again.
Yeah,
Owen had the plague last time. I lose track of these things.
Well, I had decided I was going to take a week of vacation, and my immune system went, "Oh, us too," and off it went.
Yeah, we've had a lot going on. But so this week we're going to hit on some conspiracy thinking. And I think we really want to nail what is the changing normal perspective on that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm.
So we're...
Hold up there, Dan. Your audio's gone. You sounded like a robot. We just found a great conspiracy theory. Dan is actually an android who's working undercover by this podcast to like infiltrate, the changing normal.
Yeah.
Where's Dan? What have you done with him?
Audio troubles. Oh no. I may have to throw this. I assume this is a hardware issue. My actual wire. Anyway.
Oh, see, you heard it. You heard it right there. He said he said he has wires. Dan is an android. He is not human. The robots are taking over everything, man.
He's having hardware issues. Period. Oh boy, Skynet.
I was gonna say, like, what is it, Mr. Smith or whatever? It's like I'm really just an agent.
Oh my goodness.
Oh man, so this week I'll just jump in here. I did a furnace overhaul, so we're heading into winter season, so that was a pretty important thing to get into. Got to keep the igloo warm up here, Great White North. I had a fun error where I was filling the gap between my driveway and the concrete pad of my garage, and a little bit of maintenance there, and I didn't realize you should probably look at the weather and see if it's going to pour buckets.
Oh no.
So I'm not sure how well the crack fill works.
So what were you putting, like an epoxy in there or some sort of
kind of a
cement?
rubbery type asphalt filler.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So I was just grabbed some cheap bulk stuff and I'm like, I'll pour this in that gap and maybe avoid dandelions growing in there. Hopefully shed the water, and so I think some of it didn't set in time. Not quite enough time given there. Fall season means stuff like throwing straw bales, so that was fun. And then hazelnut picking. I know we had that conversation over text on it's like, when is the right time to pick hazelnuts?
Yeah.
I was like, the rodents know best, the tree rats. The tree rats. So when you go and check and say, I think there was a few more, it's like, maybe there's some missing. And it's like, so you go pawing around underneath and it's like, oh, there's a few half shells,
So
and they're very good at detecting which ones have like hazel weevil in them as well.
Right.
So they can leave those ones for you.
Well, this is what I was going to ask you, because somebody picked a few of ours and brought them inside. And I'd say they're finished because the outer husk is all peeled back from them, kind of revealing, the nut part, the shell of the nut. But I cracked one and it was just kind of black inside. There was nothing in there. There was no nut inside.
Was there any exit hole in the shell?
I didn't look that close, to be honest.
Okay. Usually it's fairly obvious.
Okay.
If there's an exit hole.
Yeah, so I don't know.
Check a few.
Yeah, that was literally one. Kernels,
but yeah.
No, so I think it is time probably, because if the husks are starting to peel back, I think that means they're probably ready.
One way is basically letting them go fully dry ripe on the bush, but you're more likely to lose some because a few might fall, especially if you have some wind.
Right.
And then the squirrel issue is the biggest one. So sometimes you just have to pull them off and let them kind of suck all the life out of the husk.
Yeah.
And call it good there, even if they might have gained a little.
No, there. You're gonna really have to go back to your creator and get him to fix that hardware problem.
Yeah, the screwdriver.
I'm leaving all this in. I'm just gonna leave it all in. Like I was like, oh, there we got a blooper. No, I'm just gonna leave it in the show.
Minimal editing.
Yeah, we don't edit around here.
Okay. So yeah, I picked mine, or all that I could find in a hurry when I saw that some squirrels had been in there. So that was cool.
Okay.
I got a small pile. It'll look like a lot less once they're husked, but that's okay. This is only like year 6 or 7 maybe for those bushes. So all of them are super productive yet.
Technical issues all around.
Okay. Well, obviously,
picking some sea buckthorn.
Oh, are you getting some sea buckthorns?
Yeah, a few.
Nice.
So
nice.
I picked, I'll call it between 3 and 4 cups probably. So it's a very slow process.
Right.
They're really not begging to be picked. It's a difficult berry to pick. Just the lack of an inclusion layer means they don't sort of start separating when they ripen, which is kind of common for most fruit. You have to really pluck them quite firmly. And then the bushes have thorns too.
Yeah, so. I was just going to say, and the bushes like to bite. Huh. Cool.
It tastes delicious with apple cider though.
Cool. Yeah, I think we'll maybe try to get a little bit of jelly out of those. That'll be cool. What have you been up to, Owen?
Well, obviously, I haven't been up to a lot. I've been very sick, and I don't know. Have either of you broken a ribs or cracked ribs before?
No, I can't say I have. I've been hit pretty hard in hockey, but never busted a rib.
Right. Well, Sunday, I coughed so hard, I think I cracked ribs.
Possibly separation.
Separation. Yeah. Pulled muscles that I didn't realize I still had. Something like that. So the sick thing is, whatever, it follows a pattern. Everybody's been sick before, just with the, a cold, bad cold. But I was Monday, Tuesday in so much pain. I could not move. Monday, I couldn't lay down or stand up without constant pain. I had to sit like in a 90-degree chair. Actually, this computer chair was the most comfortable chair in the whole house because it's quite angular. So that was good. But yeah, I was in my entire torso, like my entire rib cage, just agonizing pain. But anyway, so today was the first day I was able to actually do some work. I have done some work. I've pushed through the pain and I've got some work done. But the project, a building project I'm working on, that would normally take me 2 days, took me an entire week basically to get finished. So that's about all I've been doing. Work on building a building sort of between my woodshed and my house, so that we can walk to the woodshed without having to climb the Mount Everest of snow that comes off the roof and piles up there outside the door. Basically making that door unusable in the wintertime. So I'm just kind of building a little shed between the two, so there'll be a passageway through there. And a few other projects that will be going on. Of course, it's heavy into harvest time right now, and I think we're going to get a heavy frost tonight, so that'll pretty well finish off anything left outside. Maybe even in the greenhouse. I've seen those heavy frosts kill stuff in the greenhouse if it gets cold enough, but we'll see. Most things are done. Root crops are still in the ground. We need to dig some of that sometime in the next few weeks. Still pretty much everything else is slowly coming to an end. So,
yeah, I saw you had some peanuts. I didn't know that was an experiment on the go.
Yeah. It was just a few plants in the greenhouse, and they were planted in with the melons, which kind of took over that area. Mm-hmm. I don't know if that contributed to only having a few, or if just not enough growing season or something else they didn't like. I don't know. But yeah, they got planted as early as possible, and then with the hope that the hotter climate in the greenhouse would boost their, maturity rate. But yeah, we haven't done anything with them, but apparently they taste like a peanut.
I thought it was a joke.
No, we actually, grew some peanuts.
I've never heard of anyone growing them in the area. So when I saw that photo that last night, I was like inspired to go on a research on the intricacies of peanuts. I'm like, wow, do you know what pegging is? To my wife, who's probably sound asleep at that point, but.
Well, my sister who lives in Alabama said that we have to try boiled peanuts.
No.
I've never had them, but she said, well, that's kind of what I thought too, but she said that's the best way to eat them. So I was like, well, I guess they would know down there, but.
I tried them once, and my opinion was that they're probably fine if you're indoctrinated into that level. I thought they were terrible.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
I've never had them, so I guess it's.
Butter.
They're what?
I said that was a waste of potential peanut butter.
Yeah.
How can you ruin such a good thing?
I thought it was a joke. They asked how much are eggs worth, and then the photo of peanuts, and I was like, "Oh, that's like you actually got a photo for the pun." That's pretty good. But.
Yeah, no. The kids are doing a egg selling project in the neighborhood, so they did up all these little notes and delivered them today to all the sort of houses in the neighborhood, since we have a surplus of eggs, and to see if anybody's interested in buying some homegrown eggs. So that's been sort of their little entrepreneurial project. We didn't actually follow through on it last year, but last year I sat down with them and showed them how to do an actual cost income analysis, and sort of how to break it down and figure out your expenses for a year, and figure out how many, eggs how much product you can produce, how much you'd sell it for, how much your income will be, and the difference. And, I laid it all out and showed them how to calculate all that. So anyway,
were they enthusiastic about this, or not so much?
Oh no, this is on them. They're doing it. They made the cards and hand wrote all the messages on them to the people, and and delivered them all today. So we'll see if anybody in the area actually takes us up on it. But
just keep getting flashbacks to For's business in college and having to write up a business plan. It's just the nightmarish evenings and nights and late nights spent in the computer lab trying to get this like 46 sheet Excel spreadsheet.
Wow.
Final. It was, well, it might not have been 46, but by the end of it, it was multiple. Anyway, my head was spinning just from trying to get the numbers done. All fun times.
What about you, Ben?
Oh my goodness. If today was a Monday, it would have been the Monday of all Mondays. I don't think it's just like anything and everything that went wrong could have gone wrong today. But Dan was able to give me a hand getting started on kind of laying out a little bit of an addition. We've got what we've been knocking down some trees and hauling them out of the woods for. We're looking at actually utilizing it possibly and getting some put up for the winter. So it's a little stressful wanting to get that done before the snow flies, but once you get everything planned out and actually kind of laid out and the first step started, it'll probably just fall into place. I've also kind of realized about myself that I know a lot less than I think I do.
Isn't that everybody?
Yeah, but today and this last week, and this kind of last 2 weeks has really just kind of driven it home. It's like, you think you're so smart and you know you don't know a whole lot, but you really don't know as much as you think you don't know a whole lot of.
Well, that's what learning does to you, I've found. In my experience, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know anything.
Well, for me, it's always just been a humility thing. To be too cocky about like, oh, yeah, I don't know exactly what I'm talking about. Anyway, I just there were some online discussions that I'm thinking, holy smokes, I'm not well versed enough in this area to really even be commenting on it. But in commenting on it, it's forcing me to think more logically and critically about whatever the topic was. And anyhow, so that, and then also realizing that I don't process things fast enough to be like surprised on the spot. I got surprised on the spot this morning by a phone call, and that created a whole conundrum that I was not expecting because I couldn't process everything that I needed to process to make a response to the phone call. Now that's why I'm more of a texter than a phone call person, even though I need to be a phone call person and not a texter, because texting is just terrible as far as
No, I'm the same. I'm the same way. I prefer to get information in a readable format so that I can process it and think about it and things like that. And then once that initial thing is done, then I'm pretty good to then have a more in-depth conversation, that's maybe not, that's face-to-face or what have you.
Right.
But I have to it takes me a little bit of time to get my head wrapped around the topic initially.
I'm totally the same way. It takes me a lot of time.
I've discovered, and the older I get, the worse I get at this. I am so not an auditory learner. And that affects everything else too. You can say something to me face to face or on the phone or whatever, and I may not understand what you're saying. But if you write it to me, no problem. I'm very, very much visual and tactile, obviously, but very, very much more of a visual learner than auditory learner. So
yeah, aside from that, we had the last local competition last 17th. I guess it would have been a week within the last 2 weeks, whatever. And then I've also been using a lot of Bitcoin wallets on my phone, trying them out and seeing how they work. Because as I've been listening to the Citadel Dispatch and the Bitcoin privacy thing by Matt Odell, he's recommended a lot of wallets I haven't dipped into or seen how to do a coin join or any of that, but I'm working my way there. Yeah, so it's just been a circuitous loop of sending sats via Lightning wallets to myself.
Yeah, I was going to say Ben's definitely the wallet guru of the bunch. I almost want to ask you is like, what number of wallets do you need to reach to finally achieve inner peace?
Let's count. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
So while he's doing that for the next minute, I would like to say, you guys can send us feedback if you're an emailer. We are changingnormal@protonmail.com. And, check us out on YouTube, Odysee, Twitter even, if you're on Twitter. And we'd love to hear from you. So I saw a post on the internet that I thought we could react to and cover for our crypto corner. And basically, this person said, I heard that we should all withdraw our stocks and bonds, savings, everything, and buy precious metals, silver mainly. Everything is going to collapse soon.
Well, everything is quite a statement.
And I'm not entirely opposed by the fact that collapse is near. I'm not entirely opposed to that part of it.
What do you think? I mean,
certainly
I talked about a withdrawal mindset when we talked about technology and authoritarianism in the last episode. But it strikes me as strange, I guess, to have that mindset and then not actually leap into action and totally withdraw, if that's what you feel is best. So I feel like it's maybe not the most helpful advice. When I see that, that's kind of what I think. Because it might make you panic without taking things through.
Well, certainly if everybody went out and withdrew, yeah, that's a word, withdrew all of those things, there definitely would be a very short or quick collapse. I think that you can have a tactical withdrawal, to use a military term, and you can be strategic in how you pull out of the system with your economic capital.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. There's definitely some good things to think over there. Definitely a partial withdrawal, like if you had everything in the stock market.
Mm-hmm.
And I would say, yeah, you definitely need to diversify. But pull the plug on everything, I mean, maybe that doesn't make the most sense.
Well, and here's the problem with this idea, I think. And I think it's found in the last part of that. Well, I guess there's two sentences there. So it's the second sentence. Everything is going to collapse soon. The problem, just taking this post in a nutshell, is what is everything? What is collapse? And what is soon? Mm-hmm. Because all three of those things can be somewhat relative. Like, they don't mean everything. Everything could involve all the buildings around us collapsing. Well, that's not what they're talking about. So when they say everything, what do they mean? Society?
This one
just the stock market?
Economic system.
The economic system? And what is collapse? So now, does that mean a full collapse back to the Stone Age? Is that simply some sort of a recession, or depression type of situation? Is it a complete retooling or rebuilding of an economic system from the ground up that's completely different than what we have now?
Yeah.
So what you think is going to happen is going to be how you're going to try and prepare or withdraw from the system in order to protect yourself to give you the best chance going forward. Yeah. And also the word soon, tomorrow. I mean, it depends on our time preference in that sense. Is soon tomorrow? Is soon in 6 months? Is soon in 5 years?
So if everything's going to collapse soon, does that mean I max out my credit card? Head for bills?
Exactly. I mean, that's a big, a pretty big step, because it assumes that it is going to be a complete and total collapse of the financial system as we know it, where nothing really matters that we do now, because it's going to be a complete reset.
Yeah, and it's hard to me to envision everything being totally wiped out. Like, even if we deal with devastating losses in the financial markets, they don't go away. Even with devastating losses, we do see wealth transfers. It's an opportunity for the very wealthy to buy things up when they're at a desperately low price. But then things tend to rebound. Economies tend to, I guess, get past the reset and regrow. You know, bubbles pop. But just because a bubble pops doesn't mean there was no underlying value. There was no underlying economic growth and, you know, systems that were generating value. So just because something, I guess, what is the term for it? When something falls back to its real value, when it's been overvalued. When that type of thing happens.
Yeah, it has a term, but I can't remember exactly what the term is.
So that sort of thing will often happen. But a full devastation of everything, it's possible. I think diversifying is the answer. That's what I would recommend if I was talking to this person. And, you know, I could say, you know, maybe diversify. You could have some precious metals. Definitely get some land. You know, practical tools, food supplies, all that stuff, and just deal with things as optimistically as you can, instead of feeling that everything is going to collapse.
I think it's interesting if we look at history. I think so often people look at history and you read it in a book and they have to cover, you know, 100 years in a page or two. And everything happens very quickly, but it seems, but the reality is things tend not to happen quickly. Those sorts of massive changes don't happen overnight. They might take a lifetime to happen. I mean, the Roman Empire collapsed over the course of a couple hundred years. Maybe even more, you could argue. A system that's so pervasive as U.S. hegemony, I don't see that collapsing overnight. It's probably not going to take a few hundred years. It's going to be faster than that, but it's not going to be tomorrow. And there'll be a transition from that into something else. And to simply withdraw and hold and go, oh, I'm just going to hold this until the collapse is over, and then put that value back into the market, you might be left holding that the rest of your life, because that change is going to happen slowly over the course of, you know, decades. And so you can't, to me, it doesn't seem smart to simply just, well, I'm going to pull everything out, hold my breath, and wait for the storm to pass before I reinvest.
Well, no, there may not be any goods to buy. I mean, I could have, I don't know, 200 pounds of silver sitting in the basement, and the collapse comes tomorrow. What am I actually going to do with it?
Yeah.
But
it's interesting that this
longer-term thing, something that is, fairly stable in terms of if there was a fairly significant economic disaster, 20 years down the road, you'd probably be able to cash in some of that value. Short term, it's probably not going to do you a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And, I'd also say going mainly into one sort of backup wealth reserve, I don't know if I recommend that either.
And it's funny that they pick something like silver. They mentioned silver, which really has never, ever been successfully used as a monetary base in history.
Its usage has always been a secondary role.
That's right.
It's always been second fiddle. And I know I've seen some theories that say, well, historically, there was always a certain ratio between gold and silver, and currently silver is undervalued and it's going to make a comeback. That's where stock to flow modeling, I think, is useful because it shows us that it's just far more easy to mine silver than it is gold. And this price of silver is just going to keep increasing. And so I think the reality is silver is not holding as well as gold.
No.
So if anything, if I was looking at a very apocalyptic scenario, if I thought that was likely, I would probably go more heavily into gold than silver if I wanted to go into metal. And probably overall, most people should probably think very hard before going more than, the 5 to 10% into precious metal.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Investing in land, investing in their community, investing in their skills.
Yeah.
Yep, I think that's something we all agree on.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So conspiracy theories. What are they and how do they work?
Dun 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 dun.
This is one I think we've had kind of on the back burner for a while, but how to tackle it, the thorny issue. I think it really comes home when you're trying to have a friendly conversation with someone and they pull out the term conspiracy theorist.
Mm-hmm.
Had that happen to me within the last week.
It's almost like a semi-daily occurrence for me. It seems like, not to be called one, but to interact with actual conspiracy theorists. We don't want to, just to clarify, we don't want to delve into too many actual conspiracy theories. We'll talk about them, but we're not going to try and prove or disprove.
Yeah, this isn't a debunking episode.
Yeah, we're not trying to debunk anything here. But I think it is interesting that people who tend to believe in conspiracy theories all have some things in common, as well as tend to follow certain patterns. Conspiracy theories all follow certain patterns. And so it's kind of interesting to see that, and also to then be able to use that information on how to approach a conspiracy theory, how to be able to identify and differentiate between a conspiracy theory and an actual conspiracy, and also how to prevent the danger of falling into that yourself. Because there's some pitfalls there that go along with that, where people can believe in it, can become a conspiracy theorist without maybe even realizing it. And then there's people out there who are actual, like, unapologetic conspiracy theorists, who love that kind of stuff and what have you.
Yeah. I thought we could hit on a technical definition, but maybe first it's most practical to realize that the way it's used doesn't exactly match technical definition, because it's basically more often than not used as an ad hominem.
Yes.
It's typically a personal attack. It's, I don't want to listen to you. This is why you're ridiculous.
Yeah. So, you're just a conspiracy theorist.
Yeah. completely discrediting anything or trying to discredit you.
Yeah. Which is part of what makes it tough in a way, because I don't think you should make a personal attack on someone in that fashion. I don't think that's constructive in any way.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, generally speaking, if you're trying to have a debate, a discussion, or, even to the lengths of a heated debate, you're not striving for anything personal. You're trying to pick apart the topic and see things from both sides and be relatively constructive. So as generally, as soon as something personal comes up or an attack, I mean, maybe attack's a little strong, but anything along those lines, generally speaking, the conversation or the discussion or the debate is kind of lost, or the purpose of it tends to be lost. Does it not?
Yeah. I kind of think to launch such the discussion ends here, it kind of reminds me of like a cutting of diplomatic ties at a country level. It's kind of like, all right, get on the plane now. Your embassy is going to be empty by tomorrow, type thing. That's kind of what it feels like, but in the realm of personal relationships, not national diplomacy. So I don't think people realize how damaging it could be to potential relationship or to potentially useful conversation to drop that in there. And so maybe it's just a very emotional reaction. Maybe even just a response. Somebody's maybe uncomfortable about even considering some of the things.
Well, I think there's a fine line there, and certainly saying, well, you're just a conspiracy theorist, end of story, we have nothing more to talk about, isn't helpful. But I do think that calling conspiracy theorists out on things, mostly on their methods, I don't know that we should avoid that too much.
Okay. See, I kind of lean towards the tendency that I would never call someone a conspiracy theorist. If they had a specific idea that I thought was wildly implausible, I would probably object to it in that way. I don't see that you've presented any actual evidence. This seems very implausible. It seems like
that's what I mean.
It's too far from a principle like Occam's razor, where the simplest answer is more likely to be true.
Yes, that's what I mean. Is you call people out on the methods by which they're quote unquote proving their conspiracy. Mm-hmm. You don't necessarily have to actually combat their evidence, though that's good. But you can say your evidence isn't real evidence because these things you're doing discredit it as following a scientific method. And I think that's one of the, if you had to sum it all up, it's the improper use of the scientific method that makes so many conspiracy theories just that, theories.
In a recent episode of the Tom Woods Show, he was interviewing Dr. Corey, and he kind of had an interesting little discussion point revolving around how, well, an individual can't be an expert in all fields. It's hard enough to be an expert in a single field. Mm-hmm. Like, how do you deal with finding the truth when you simply can't be an expert in everything in every area that your life touches upon, in every area that you're going to be reflecting on and wondering what the truth is? It's a huge problem that we have to overcome. There's not really an easy answer to that.
Yeah. No, you're right. And there certainly needs to be discernment between believing which experts are actual experts themselves, yeah. So
yep. You know, one answer they gave was being very discerning about conflicts of interest.
Mm-hmm.
That was one thing I thought was key.
And one of the big problems with conspiracy theorists is that they tend to use a fair bit of circular logic when it comes to the proof or evidence that contradicts their hypothesis. So I'm going to get into this a little bit later, but like first off, I think conspiracy theories, conspiracy theories follow this pattern. Okay. They all follow the same pattern, basically. Suspicion, deception, wickedness, selective proof, and anomaly hunting. So they're all based on a suspicion that something is not as it seems. And then the second part, which ties into what we were just talking about, everything surrounding that is deceptive. So all the evidences are simply part of the conspiracy.
Okay, so does that go as far as everything is a lie or is false?
No, because they would they would try to provide proof that they would say is true, but anything that contradicts their hypothesis is part of the conspiracy.
Mm-hmm.
But almost every conspiracy theory involves it's deceptive. There's deception going on. Something's being covered up. They're not telling you the truth. You know, that sort of thing. There also is this concept that there's a good versus evil battle going on. So it's these people are doing bad things and they're trying to cover it up and spin it so that with deception, so that it looks like it's something else or that it's not them. So it's always a good versus evil sort of dynamic going on. And then, of course, there's the idea, which is not specific to conspiracy theorists. Lots of people use selective proof methods to try and provide proof of their side of an argument. And then, of course, anomaly hunting, where you try to search for anything that, you know, I guess this ties into selective proof as well. The other thing about anomaly hunting also refers to trying to find the inconsistencies in an other argument or an unexplained inconsistency and focusing in on that. That might also be what anomaly hunting means. But anyway, that's the pattern that conspiracy theories tend to follow.
Okay. So something I've noticed is what I would term oversimplification. Would you say that's part of one of those steps, basically, in the pattern? It seems like they want to oversimplify it where there's one bad group and they're responsible for everything that's happening. And
yes. Yeah, well, this is, again, I got a great quote by somebody. Basically, it says, conspiracy theories are an irresistible labor-saving device in the face of complexity. So basically say you can use a conspiracy theory to say, well, they're just out to get you. The black helicopter kind of concept, which has actually came from a conspiracy theory. We use it in modern vernacular now, but without even realizing, came from a conspiracy theory, is a way to kind of just cover up actually understanding the complexities of a such situation that might provide a non-conspiratorial answer to the situation. So, I mean, we could provide examples of that if you want, but I can think of an example where that could be the case, but I don't want to get into controversial conspiracy theories because we're not trying to debunk things here. But, the 9/11, the towers falling, there's a lot of conspiracy theories around that. It's a very complex subject. You're dealing with buildings and engineering and architecture and burn rates of aviation fuel and impact of a plane. You're dealing with extremely complex subjects.
Yeah,
and
it's a very good case to bring up because it's something where I feel it would be too arrogant for me to express an opinion on that without more study than I'm willing to do.
Yeah, either way, from either perspective, in my opinion. Like, to say that the plane impact did or did not cause the fall of those buildings. Like, it's such a complex thing that it's very easy to simply say, well, it was actually, a controlled collapse by, government actors who are looking for an excuse to invade Iraq. Like, you could come up with a conspiracy theory, and it's very easy to get lazy about it because it removes all the complexity of what is probably the reality.
Yeah, and you saw there basically you added a piece to it, which was where he started about talking about like the engineering and science and physics aspects. And then, well, you have to immediately flip to the other side and tack on, well, the motivation, basically the scheme side of things. And every piece you add to a hypothesis or theory makes it more likely that you're dangerously inaccurate. It would be far safer to stick with a single issue where you talked about structural framing of skyscrapers, if that was something you had any expertise on, or engineered demolition, that sort of thing, and just talked about anomalies that were specific to the physics of the situation.
Yeah.
But as soon as you leap to tacking on different things that are even harder to prove, you make it less likely that anything productive can be achieved at all.
Yeah. Well, and this is a good segue into talking about hypothesis and the scientific method. So the existence of some sort of, plot really is a testable hypothesis. And that's really what you're looking for. If you're looking to follow a scientific method to prove something is right or wrong, you need to form some sort of hypothesis, which is a theory about a truth. And so in the scientific method, if there's an absence of proof, or if there's evidence that contradicts what you're theorizing, there isn't an automatic assumption that it's part of a cover-up. Right? But a conspiracy theory assumes the opposite. The idea is the premise, and the premise is assumed true even if there's evidence to the contrary.
Yeah, you could almost say the responsible thing to do when you formulate a hypothesis is try to disprove it, not attempt to prove it.
Right. And conspiracy theories generally do the opposite. They try to prove it. And I don't have a problem with trying to prove your position. I think there is value in that. But it's very difficult to stay true to the idea that you could be wrong. And so what you tend to do is chase after proofs that only, support your side. That's a human temptation thing like that. Yeah, you see that all the time, and I'm guilty of that, I'm sure. And I mean, everybody is to some extent, I'm sure.
Bias and subjectivity versus objectivity.
That's right. That's right. And yeah, so Dan, I think you're right in that if you try to disprove it, you're going to tend to keep that objectivity intact.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the problem with that is that it makes conspiracy theories irrefutable. So if your original premise can never be wrong, then the scientific method, evidence, logic has no bearing on the explanation of it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
Because everything is accounted for in the conspiracy.
Right. Well, and it becomes so personal too. It becomes so personal because a lot of times it's deemed as the only explanation in the mind of those that are supporting it or are coming to that conclusion. So then, as soon as something becomes personal, it's a lot harder to stay objective versus subjective.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I mean,
say you cross over into belief instead of trying to objectively model the world around you.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's a good thing to realize, is that when you try to create a record of history or attempt to model aspects of how the world works, you can never be 100% accurate. And so you should never jump fully onto the I've got it figured out. Now I must convince everyone else.
Maybe that's why I'm terrible at online arguments, because I always finalize one of my statements with, I'm open to being wrong. If you want to prove me wrong, sure, go for it. I'll hear it.
Yeah, well, questioning everything is a legitimate position.
Yes.
Like this idea of questioning everything. But if you do so without the idea of being wrong, when presented with reasonable evidence, that's anti-science.
If you already knew the answer, is it a question?
Exactly. If you're not willing to change your hypothesis, like the scientific method involves changing your hypothesis if you prove your hypothesis wrong.
Mm-hmm.
If you prove your hypothesis wrong, the next step is create a new hypothesis.
Mm-hmm.
And then test it again. That's actually questioning everything. But to simply question everything in the way that the lack of evidence is proof of the conspiracy itself, that's not actually questioning everything. That's just circular reasoning at that point.
Well, I mean, defining terms, if you're saying everything, everything should include everything, including the conclusion that your presupposition, right? You're like, what, like you said, being open to being wrong.
No, the rule is question everything but myself.
Oh. I wish I could say that with 100% certainty.
Well, what it comes down to for me is we need to be open-minded, but not so open-minded that our brains fall out.
Always loved that quote.
Questioning the narrative is good as far as it follows good scientific inquiries, but we have to be willing to accept the evidence that's presented and not fall victim to explaining away inconvenient proof with lazy arguments. Because it's all part of the conspiracy is a lazy argument. That's my unpopular opinion.
Well, I'd like to pivot a little bit here. So now we've talked about scientific method, hypothesis, and theory. So that is one word of the term conspiracy theory. The other is the conspiracy, and basically to conspire. And what I'd always like to ask people who like to use the term conspiracy theorist as an accusation is, do you believe that humans ever conspire?
Right.
Or that only happened in the movies? Is this merely an artifact of fiction?
Well, there's certainly there's many examples of conspiracies that turned out to be true.
So, at its most basic, we're only talking about humans, so 2 or more people getting together and conspiring, which conspiring is basically what? I would say agreeing to an agenda or a set of goals. So that's the definition.
Yeah. And there certainly is a negative connotation there, though I don't know that fits the actual definition.
Okay, is it always negative? Could you conspire to do something positive, but maybe
that's right.
Want to be open?
Well, that's why I say it's not really part of the definition, because you could conspire. The 3 of us could conspire to go stack the little old lady's wood. Right? That would be us conspiring in the definition of the word conspire. But in most of the time in this context, it's used in a negative way. Because remember, suspicion, deception, wickedness, that's all part of a conspiracy theory. And we're talking about conspiracy theories.
Yeah, even just the whole kind of kit and caboodle is used in the negative kind of club. Format's the wrong term for it, but basically, beat people over the head with it, either for or against them. Because utilizing let's see here. Utilizing the conspiracy to try to push or promote a point. Yeah.
Yeah.
But
it can quickly become political gamesmanship. I guess is that kind of what you're getting at?
Ben kind of froze up there. I don't think he heard you, Dan.
Hard frost incoming. Even I kind of wanted to ask you, who is the author of that quote you mentioned earlier?
Yeah, I have another really good one for later. It was Henry Louis Gates.
Because if you had no answer, I was going to say I don't often quote somebody, but when I do, it's usually myself.
No, I didn't come up with any pithy quotes of my own for this, but I did look up. I'm going to look up, some conspiracy theory quotes and see if, there's been anything funny out there. But yeah, there was a couple good ones.
Yeah, so like I said, it's been the Mondayest of all Mondays, and it's not even Monday. So sorry.
So I don't know if we've covered our personal approaches to, I guess, theories and questioning in general. And but for me, I think it's basically I try to figure out the plausibility of anything. That's the first thing I look at. The follow-up to that is, of course, can I even form an educated opinion about the plausibility of this subject? Or should I rule myself out of having an opinion on it?
Right.
I think that's a useful step. And third is, does this affect me in any way? It's like, okay, maybe the moon landing didn't happen. Do I care?
Yeah. We definitely talked about that in earlier episodes, filtering out the things that are of immediate effect to you, and how your mental health can either suffer or benefit from said filtering.
So in that vein, I'm going to whip out my other quote because it kind of ties into that. Conspiracy theory is the ultimate refuge of the powerless. If you cannot change your own life, it must be some greater force that controls the world.
That's a good one.
That's Roger Cohen.
I agree on the greater force having everything in control.
Well, I don't.
Powerless, and I guess that it's an attempt to be part of a rallying cry to form a collective and fight the force they feel powerless against.
Yeah, I think that certainly can be what draws people to it. I think the problem becomes that it then becomes that's what they're doing, but they're trying to fight something that is just a theory that may not even exist. And in doing so, they actually don't address the real problem, which is their own feeling of powerlessness or their own inability to affect their circle of control. So in many ways, it's somebody else's problem always for their lack of whatever.
Yeah.
I'm not saying this is everyone. I'm just saying.
No, we've jumped over to psychology now, and I definitely don't feel proficient in that.
No, but you see that. Jordan. You see that all the time, though. Things go bad in your life. It must be someone else's fault, or right? Like, things are going bad. I got fired from my job, and it's because my parents didn't buy me a puppy when I was little. It's that kind of blaming. What's that?
I said they probably should have bought you a puppy, but
right. But you know what I mean? Like it's that kind of reaction. And so often when you feel powerless to affect change in your own life, there's some greater force that controls the world and there's nothing we can do about it. Right?
Okay.
It's
so part of this comes from feeling isolated, potentially. So does this response to feeling isolated and powerless increase or decrease the state you're in? Or basically, does it increase your isolation and powerlessness?
Well, it certainly can go one of two ways. And I think the majority, at least a lot of the people who stay in that conspiracy theory world, it puts them in a downward spiral where everything becomes a deeper and greater conspiracy, and there's less and less incentive for them to actually change their own normal and affect change in their lives.
So does the principle of, I guess, growing as a person, I guess some people might say becoming stronger or more powerful but not wielding it type thing, or like becoming the warrior but not exercising that power unjustly, does that sort of path prevent you from going into a downward spiral?
I'm not sure the connection there necessarily, but maybe I would just phrase it a little different. So that downward spiral of hopelessness, because you can't control your own life because there's some greater force, which means there's no point in trying to make change in my life because there's some greater force, etc. The opposite of that would be I'm going to change my life so that greater force doesn't control me. So I'm going to put some sort of I don't know. I'm going to take back power from those who have taken it from me in the ways that I can in my circle of influence so that I don't feel powerless, and so that those who I believe conspire against me can't have the effect over me that they currently do. So like that to me is the sort of antithesis of that downward spiral.
Okay. So could I maybe call that choosing your battles strategically? Basically, instead of trying to take a head-on approach, tackling things on a battlefront you can win, which is basically the choices of your regular life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that's what that circle of influence, you could frame that circle of influence in that way. I think what Cohen's talking about here, though, is that people turn to conspiracies and the conspiracy theories because it's the only way, because then they can sort of make an excuse for their feeling of powerlessness.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it can be very demotivating as well to, I guess, to look at encroaching evil and feel powerless against it. So, I mean, how do you build motivation to, I guess, change your life? Probably less focus. I'm going to say start by focusing less on the encroaching evil that you see.
Mm-hmm.
I think that can be useful. Definitely, when you focus on anything that's negative, it becomes more and more of a drain on, I would say, your mental processing ability. We only have so much attention, right? And so if you focus all of that energy on something where you can't make a significant difference, it's only going to take away from areas where you could actually jump into action.
Mm-hmm.
And we're really trying to delve into, like, what is the practical response? And then it's also difficult because there's kind of a fine line between creating a boogeyman and facing the reality that there are so many political factions that it's kind of the de facto state of humanity to have political factions that are competing against each other and are striving to get to the top of the power ladder, and perfectly willing and sometimes capable of stomping on everyone in their path. So the fact that there's some truth to, I guess, there is evil in the world. There are people with political agendas. There are humans that conspire with each other against other human beings. And so where do I draw the line between, I guess, conspiracies that are actually happening and those that are probably not?
Yeah, like that's the that's what it is for me, is that realizing there likely is a shred of truth or something in there that makes it appealing to a degree, because okay, to some degree the majority of humanity is not going to latch on to something that's absolutely completely outrageous. There's something that happens or something that is implied or said or seen or done or whatever that is legitimate, but then is built off of. So that's kind of where, like, you know, real, like you said, you know, the bandwidth thing, discerning, not taking too much mental mental energy, I guess. But
what if we take a current example? The WEF is all the rage, I guess, to talk about as far as an encroaching evil, the World Economic Forum. And so if we're going to apply some of these principles, how do we actually I guess we could use this as our case study. And maybe we all have a different approach to this. Now, to me, I look at this and see what looks to be clearly an association. It's fairly public as far as, or it has been at least in the past, about membership, that sort of thing. The fact that it's a bit of a type of club, I would say. And so this is not the sort of dark underground conspiracy type thing. I immediately see this as people attempting to recruit to their group so that they can expand their power and influence. And so it's not, I don't see it as a super powerful group that's affecting decisions in every I guess political back room or parliament, or
So what's the conspiracy here? What's the implied conspiracy?
That they're tentacles.
Theory, I guess that they're the rising power in the world, and they're behind all economic changes that are being promoted.
And they're the new world order, etc. Right.
So what is your approach as far as hearing these hypotheses about the nature of the WEF, and like, how do you sift through what you hear about it?
Well, certainly I start at the premise of human nature with those sorts of things. We're not dealing with a scientific phenomenon like
Solus point.
100%. No, that's exactly.
Took the words out of his mouth.
Yeah, that's my starting point too. Like, that's what I was going to say. Like, I start with human nature. That's my springboard. So anyway, continue on. Yeah. You're going to say it much more eloquently than I would have.
Well, I don't know about that, but we're not dealing with something that's scientific, like, I don't even want to say it, but chemtrails or flat Earth, right? Those are natural phenomenons or scientific phenomenons, even more than where we don't necessarily need to get into the motive behind the conspiracy. But when you're dealing with the WEF and the conspiracy around that, you certainly are dealing more with the questioning of people's motives than a scientific phenomena. Does that make sense? So I start with the idea of human nature. And so I start with the idea that humans tend to want one thing, and that's power.
Yep.
It's built into human nature. And you can see this in microcosms of giving someone power on a job site or whatever. It very quickly can go to their head if they don't have the self-discipline to control that. And I think that money and power is very closely tied together, because in the modern economic world that we live in, money buys you power and vice versa. I would balance that by saying that many people who do bad things do them for for genuine reasons. And that they may have the position of, I believe this is the best course of action to solve a perceived problem. So the WEF may see a perceived problem in climate change. Whether you believe climate change is real or not real or whatever about it, it doesn't matter. They see a perceived problem in climate change, and these are their solutions to go about solving this problem. Or they see human inequality, and this is their way of going about solving that problem.
Okay, so that's fairly simple. They have beliefs about the state of the world, and they're going to take action as far as their abilities, and I suppose expand their abilities to take action.
Right. And because people in positions of power naturally will want to centralize that and control in order to achieve their objective, because that gives them the greatest likelihood of actually accomplishing their plan. That tends to lead to, in my opinion, bad things and bad solutions. Whereas if you're following a more free market, sound money principle, it may go directions that you don't have control over and maybe you don't like as much. And it might not be as a direct solution to the problem. And so that lack of control is what is a turnoff for so many people. Anyway, that's just kind of how I start to dissect it. It's like how I look at it overall to give balance to the for and against. That's me testing the hypothesis. But again, you have to set a hypothesis. The hypothesis has to be the WEF is bad or the WEF is good, for example. You know?
So are they responsible for the crickets in your popcorn?
There's crickets in my popcorn? Are my popcorns not going pop?
So I'm good there.
Is my popcorn not going pop? Is that the crickets we're talking about, or is this actual crickets?
No,
you're talking about it. Oh, you're talking about insect meat. I know what you're talking about.
I admit I did not research this. This is just something I've seen. There are now crickets in processed food.
Okay.
So maybe we'll deal with that another time.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think we need to. I don't know how far we want to go with this as far as actually debunking. We said we weren't going to do that, but
yeah. So I think we have covered a fairly decent generalized approach, and definitely being thoughtful. I think not giving up things to pursue chasing organizations or groups of humans that you think are conspiring. Definitely focus on building your own life and community first and foremost. You know what? That is where you get the most bang for your buck, devoting your energy to that. So keep your priorities sorted.
Yeah, it really comes back to what we've talked about many times before, where think critically about the world around you and the things you hear and the things that you believe and the things you're told, the things you see, and focus on that which is in your circle of concern, in your circle of influence, rather.
Yep.
So.
Yep. And crickets are safe and efficient, so I can only hope they are corn chips in the future so we can all partake.
Cricket chips.
Gross. We had to raise crickets in college for food in our wildlife lab, and they're disgusting. So gross.
Deep fry them. Everything is for deep fried, right?
Covered in chocolate, probably.
How about we jump to listener feedback? So we had a few things online. Boostergram at Canadian Farmstead. Thank you for that. And he says, mark me down for the snail mail transcript of the podcast when you guys get sent it.
Which might be right after this show comes out. We've said conspiracy. We've said conspiracy theory and WEF enough times in this show that we're probably going to get flagged.
Sweet.
Well, we made an honest attempt anyway. Heidi says, "Congrats on 20 great shows." Wow, that is quite a compliment. She could have said good. So thanks for the vote of confidence there. We're happy you've been appreciating it. He says, I'm learning lots and entertained more. Wow. I look forward to the show each week. So positive feedback. That is awesome. By the way, when you went through Owen's bag and mentioned diabetes, there is something on the market instead of sugar. Okay, this is an educational comment as well. The sugar packets can get wet and harden over time. That's probably accurate. It says diabetics use fast-acting glucose tablets that come in a plastic case, which would be better. They would also last longer, and they're not that expensive, $3 to $5, and can be found in any drugstore.
Sweet.
So that's a useful thought. Definitely things in paper packaging, you're going to have to replace them more often when they suffer damage.
Yeah, they tend to absorb the humidity and stuff from the air. So that's a really good tip. So
thanks, Heidi.
We'll need to go search out some of these fast-acting glucose tablets that come in a plastic case.
Any drugstore.
Yeah.
Cool.
And I guess
I wonder if my guy down the corner has them.
Oh.
I thought they burned that house.
Oh, maybe it's the wrong drugstore we're talking about here. I don't know.
The local pharmacy means something different where we live.
Yeah.
That would be interesting to attempt. Do you have any fast-acting glucose tablets? What do we have in the news this week? Ben, you got a little bit of Bitcoin news in here?
Yeah, I couldn't. Actually, I wasn't the one to put that first link in there.
Okay, is that yours, Owen? Colorado now accepts Bitcoin payment.
Was it me?
Interesting story.
Oh, it might have been me actually. Yeah, it might have been me. I think that was last week. I think I put it in there last week before, and then that we didn't do the show.
That's right.
So I can't really tell you much more about it other than Colorado accepts Bitcoin payments now for.
So the state.
The state of Colorado. Okay, so this is I can remember some details. So the state of Colorado now accept Bitcoin payment for taxes and like maybe it wouldn't be ticket payments because that would be municipal. For taxes and anything state related as far as paying the government your money. But they only accept it through the PayPal payment system.
Crypto ecosystem.
Yeah, that's right.
It's interesting because PayPal is a what do you call it? Like a fully isolated.
That's right.
System where they do not allow any of the crypto on their platform to exit their platform.
That's right. So basically, you'd have to convert. I don't know why you do this, but I guess if you could convert your fiat to Bitcoin and then pay it to the state, but maybe they're just trying to target. They're probably looking for a convenient way to do it, and they went, "Oh, well, everyone has PayPal," but they probably don't even realize that real crypto people don't really use PayPal too much.
If you're a Bitcoiner in Colorado, are you going to use PayPal to pay your taxes? That's an interesting question, but at least a positive step that legislators are looking at ways to accept it instead of, I guess, just dismissing it. So,
the only interesting way I've heard of utilizing PayPal with Bitcoin is using the Fold card.
Okay, because you can get like not gift cards, but like a gift card type of thing. And
then in a very kind of roundabout, kind of circuitous way, like you can double or triple or exponentially increase your Satoshi rewards. But,
Okay.
Yep. But it's definitely a reminder that more and more we're not going to see individual companies or whatever accepting actual Bitcoin as much as payment intermediaries are going to sort things out and say, yeah, you can pay Bitcoin. It'll just be seamless behind the scenes. and you'll be able to receive dollars or whatever you want at the receiving end if you're a vendor.
Cash App, they definitely do that. Utilize Lightning Network in the background. You send fiat to someone, Bitcoin Lightning Network in the background, instant settlement and fiat in their Venmo app right away. Bing, bang, boom.
The Kraaken CEO steps down. Is this significant, or is he just moving on to a new project?
Nope, he's going to remain as chairman of their board. It's interesting because Kraaken is one of the very few exchanges that's never been hacked, and they still have a very staunch stance on not delisting privacy coins, not pandering to the woke mob agenda. Like I think we talked about it a while ago about how their CEO, the CEO who just stepped down, Jesse Powell, he said that he wants the best people in the job, regardless of all of the identifiers that are in this society today. He said, doesn't matter to me. If you're the best person for this job, I want you in this job. And so now that he's stepped down, the new CEO, I think his name is Dave Ripley, stepping into the role, he also said, not going to register with the SEC. And we're not going to delist tokens that are, what did he say? Deemed securities. I mean,
right.
In my opinion, he's putting a large target on his back, but good for him.
Yeah. Basically, what the former CEO said was none of those controversies affected the decision to step down, that he had actually told the company like a year ago that he was going to do this, and he just was basically bored of the job. So
built one of the best exchanges. It's good enough for me. Yeah. Now, Matt Odell would say it's a KYC exchange, so no good. But
right.
You gotta get started somewhere.
Yeah.
All right. Well, that covers the few things we wanted to hit on this week. If you guys want to have us hit on some headlines and maybe throw some opinions around on that type of thing, you can always shoot us some links to news stories or articles about crypto or homesteading or whatever. And email is a great way to do that. It's changingnormal@protonmail.com. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time.